This simple example is about how to use service layer in Apex Common Library. You can see all classes and interfaces with this example on the screen. In this example, we will create task for opportunity record, but it could be any object you want to create task for, because interfaces allow us to make service layer type agnostic. It is impossible to understand completely how this library works if you do not use it on a daily basis. Especially difficult to understand it if you just started out, so you must be patient. Service layer has no pre-built classes attached like FFLib as object domain class for domain layer or FFLib as object selector class for selector layer, so it will create an instance of a service implementation class that you provide. You can use domain layer to work with trigger and service layer for everything else. I created a new project and installed FFLib Apex Common and FFLib Apex Mocks libraries to save time. It's easy, but you have to install the FFLib Apex Mocks first, because FFLib Apex Common depends on it. Also, I created Lightning Web component and named it callRelevantClass. This component lives on any sObject record page and sends the record's ID to the Apex or enabled class, aka UI controller, when you push the button. Let's take a look at the application factory class I created beforehand. This class is connected to the FFLib application class from Apex Common Library. In application class, only service layer provides mapping by interfaces, all other layers by sObject type. This is because each service implementation class that you provide in the application should implement an interface to enable typecasting at runtime. Let's create the Apex UI controller with the name taskController and the method createTask. In this controller, we create a set with the type ID to put our record's ID in. This is for bulkification. Then we retrieve the type of the record using getAsObjectType method of asObject class. After that, we send the data to the service aka gasket middleman intermediary class, and if no errors, send back something to the Lightning Web component as a response. List of newly created tasks, for example, but I will send back just an empty list for now. Now let's create this service intermediary class with the name task service. This service class exists for two reasons. First, we use it in mocks for unit testing. Second, the calling class or method does not need to set up preconditions in order to call the service implementation class. I mean an Apex UI controller for Lightning Web Components. Do not work with FFLib application class directly to instantiate required class. Do it in a service intermediary class. So your task is to send the relevant interface type related to the service implementation class which you want to instantiate to the new instance method of a service factory inner class of a FFLib application class. Again, in this service class, we access FFLib application class and work with the inner service factory class to instantiate the appropriate service implementation class. Let's create service implementation class with the name task service implement. This class implements I_task service interface with declaration of one method, create tasks. I will create this interface right now. Basically, you shouldn't add underscore after capital I in the interface name. I did it on purpose to highlight two custom interfaces that we will create for this example. OK, done. In this service implementation class we will connect domain layer to work with object, selector layer if you want something from database, or insert update to database using unit of work pattern, because all communication with database must be executed within this service implementation class. For that reason you must have handmade classes for domain and selector layers to provide required operation for each object type in these layers which was added to the map in application class. You must create them yourself. So basically the service layer often requires involvement of all other layers in service implementation class to make the job done. For example, in our case we will use domain and selector layers in unit of work design pattern. Why we need selector layer? We have a list of opportunity IDs and want to get relevant records. For that we use selector layer, application, selector, new instance, object type. This will return the opportunity selector class, because in application factory class we have mapping of opportunity as object type to opportunity selector class. We need the list to hold our records to create the task for them. The name of the list, add task to. We get records with select as object by ID method. Select as object by ID is the predefined method from FFLib as object selector class. This method could be called because opportunity selector class extends FFLib as object selector class. Then we need to create a task for each opportunity selected from the database above. For that we use domain layer, which works with given object, because the domain class is object-specific class. It represents single object and its specific behavior. In application factory class, for domain layer, we need this mapping. Opportunity as object type to opportunities constructor class. Of course, we need to create opportunities class. So it goes to domain factory inner class of FFLib application class, then instantiate a domain class. Typecasting of the received domain class to our custom I_create task interface type is interesting and requires explanation. But let's first create two required classes, opportunity selector and opportunities plural class. First is opportunity selector class. This opportunity selector class should have two mandatory methods. One for indicating what type of S-object the selector is for, and the other being which fields should be selected using SQL query. Get as object fields list. Implement this method to inform the base class of the common fields to be queried or listed by the base class methods. Get as object type method returns exact type of as object. Implement this method to inform the base class of the as object to be queried. Both are abstract methods from the FFLib as object selector class. By the way, this is not related to our example, but good to remember. Select by ID helper method from selector factory inner class of FFLib application to query given S-object records is used in domain factory inner class of the same FFLib application class. Let's create opportunities class. It should be the plural of the S-object you work with. Plural encourages the work in bulk. Must extend FFLib S-object domain class and implements a custom interface with the declaration of create task for opportunities method. This will be the name of the method to create tasks, could be any name. The name of the interface could be any of your choice. Let's call it I_create_task. I will create it after we finish with this class. I explain why we need it shortly. As we can see in application class domain mapping, opportunity is object type to opportunities constructor class. So domain layer tries to instantiate the inner constructor class in opportunities class. Obviously we must create it. This inner class is for the safety reasons, to ensure the right type passed to the opportunities class constructor. This inner class with the name constructor, which is slightly misleading, implements FFLib as object domain iConstructable interface. This interface lives inside FFLib as object domain class and declares only one method, construct. The purpose of the construct method is to instantiate the class directly and pass the list of records into the outer class constructor. The outer class constructor can then pass the records into the superclass so that we can then access the records from anywhere within our domain class. And this is the create task for opportunities method that we will use to create tasks. Obviously you will create tasks for different objects slightly different, and this is why the service layer is so convenient. You will use the domain class specific to this particular object with the custom implementation of this method. Fields might differ, description, subject, you got the idea. OK, done. Now it's time for I_create task interface. OK, back to the service implementation class. So why we need I_create task interface? FFLib_I domain interface is here because this is the type which will be returned from FFLib application domain factory new instance method. This call of new instance method goes through the chain of 3 new instance methods inside FFLib application domain factory, and only in fourth it creates an instance of relevant domain class, in our case opportunities. It calls construct method which we already created an opportunities class beforehand. It means we already provided relevant records to the FFLib as object domain class, so now we can use methods provided by this class in opportunities class, or we can create our own custom method, in this case create task for opportunities. Register new method of unit of work stores the records in memory. We will commit the work in task service implement class. This is the time when I_create task interface comes in handy. As we remember, the returning type of new instance method for domain factory is FFLib_I domain. This is out-of-the-box interface from Apex common library. Obviously, it has no declaration of create task for opportunities method that we just created. So we need to directly typecast the instance of opportunities domain class which we instantiate inside task service implement class to I_create task interface. Typecasting looks like that. And now we can call create task for opportunities method from opportunities class in task service implement class. We registered new unit of work using this method. For now, new task record lives in memory. It's time to commit the work. All DML statements are wrapped in try-catch block, and if any exception is thrown, it will roll back everything. Now let's upload all this code to the developer org, including FFLib Apex Common and FFLib Apex Mocks libraries. To deploy all this code correctly, your sfdx project JSON file under the root directory of your project should look like this. This is the order of deployment. It's time to open default org and add Lightning Web component to the opportunity record page. Save. Push the button. Check out new task on opportunity. Working. That's it.